I was just saying that it was very insightful what you said, because I actually ended up in a self-defense altercation where I went to jail for 30 days. I had a person come up to me and did all the stuff you're supposed to, put my hands up, splayed my fingers, and the person came at me and I ended up hitting them first before they hit me. And when it went to a court of law, I ended up being the one who was the aggressor, because even though my hands were up, I was the one that hit them first. They did a background check, they didn't notice that I had martial arts. So just reiterating the idea of making it look a lot more passive than you want it to, when you have to deal with the repercussions of it, is extremely important, because that was not something that was necessarily taught to us. When it was taught, if somebody comes at you, you do what you need to do, and as a fighter, you're taught not to get hit. But when it happened, I reacted and hit them first, and as a result, I ended up going to jail.
For me, coming from a law enforcement background, it's essential. I mean, it's something that actually, a good law enforcement training program will train officers to give those verbal commands for several reasons. One of them is creating witnesses, and like you said, kind of saying things like, sir, get away from me, I don't want any trouble, things very loud, because you're creating witnesses by that, whether they're just hearing you or they've got their video camera out. I taught a knife as a backup weapon course last week. I used a video of an incident, and I have a news clip in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where an officer used a knife to stab a guy that was trying to take his gun off of him. And in the newscast, they say, witnesses heard the officer saying, "Let go of my gun, let go of my gun." If you're an officer, you start stabbing someone and you don't have those kind of witnesses, that could turn into a bad situation. But because there were witnesses that heard him saying very loud, "Let go of my gun, let go of my gun," and then he had to end up having to stab the guy, that is going to be, that's going to kind of clear him of any type of accusation of excessive force. So,
while we have the opportunity, let's talk about cultural, societal elevation of violence. How that unfolds based in urban environments. Does it go down in DC or Chicago like it goes down in Alabama or in Sweden?
Well, there's definitely differences based on where you go. There's also
codes, right? There's codes of respect and
on the streets. Something that is not talked about and not popular is when we talk about profiling. Profiling is a thing. We all do it. Profiling is just a tool like anything else that can be done negatively or positively. Unfortunately, we do live in a world where certain people are profiled as more dangerous than others. From listening to what you're saying those words, I was very clear to say, you're in my personal space, get out of my personal space, and did all the correct things to do it. But at the end of the day, in my situation, there was a white middle-class man walking towards a darker skinned person, and therefore, no matter what I did, it still came across as I was the aggressor, which just gives me information as a person, you have to be hyper vigilant on how you approach it, because you just don't know how people are going to look at the situation.
And that's one of the things that I think that's not talked about a lot, as far as what you said in your situation where you got 30 days in. I mean, it's not a machismo thing anymore. There was a time when this was battlefield stuff, we would use it and everybody knew why they were there. Now you could just be a person going about your day and something crazy happens, and now I'm in front of this person and all of a sudden I do what I have to do, and then they turn around and say, "No, you were the bad guy." Now I'm spending thousands of dollars. I got a wife and I got a child, but I'm spending all of our savings on just paying on an attorney. I didn't win anything.
No.
I knocked this guy out, but in the end of the day, sometimes you might even walk away from that saying, I would have been better to let him just beat me up,
And with social media too,
yes.
Everyone has the world at the palm of their fingertips. You could be in the middle of a fight, somebody videotapes that thing, it could go viral in moments. And if I didn't say the right things, I look like a thug no matter what I did in my entire career.
And that happens a lot, and again, coming from the law enforcement standpoint, you just see that happen time and again to law enforcement too. We've got a 5-second clip that goes viral, 5-second clip of a use of force situation that probably took 30 minutes. And so now people are getting that small picture, and the same thing can happen to anyone, where that people get that small picture of what happened that makes you kind of look bad, when in reality that's just one piece of a big picture. And so, yeah, those things are more so now than ever, but with the things going viral and whatnot. But just one more reason why it's important to have all those things, whether it's the verbal, the body language, the passive demeanor, everything together that makes people understand that, yeah, I am just trying to protect myself and I'm not the aggressor in that type of situation. Just one more reason why those things become that much more important, because the fight hasn't finished when the guy, your assailant, is on the ground. The fight's going to keep going when you have to kind of explain your actions and go to potentially stand before a jury and explain them. So,
is this worth discussing further?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there's two sides to this, right? Understanding, not just ways to make sure that people understand that you are just protecting yourself, but if you don't understand the law also, then it can do two things. It can make you act inappropriately, meaning use more force than is legally justified, or hesitating to do anything. If hesitation is what gets people hurt and killed. If I don't understand what I can do legally, then maybe I'll hesitate to do anything, and that can put me, physically in jeopardizing situations. So, there's two sides to it: the hesitation side and the actually doing more than you should have side of things.
Yeah. So people need training, I think, in multiple levels. There's the doing, and there's the body mechanics of how I look. There's what I say, and then there's what I do physically if somebody actually attacks me. And when do I stop? Where do I stop? Where do I draw that line to make sure and ensure that not only do I survive that moment, but I'm also healthy and happy with later. And so.
And I think one of the key words there in knowing when to stop is imminency. Okay, right? Is the threat imminent? If you've knocked that threat to the ground and it's no longer an imminent threat, and now you go ahead and give him a good kick while he's on the ground or something of that nature, then now you've actually gone from the victim to the actual perpetrator. And so there are lines where the imminency of the danger has stopped, but you continue to use force so there's that escalation, de-escalation that will inevitably take place. And again, things that the civilian has to think about, but kind of also things that people can really understand how difficult a police officer's job is sometimes too, trying to do all of that in the dynamic, evolving chaos of a physically combative encounter.
So complex, multi-layered, worth discussing further, worth exploring, worth thinking about.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And actually, even the role-playing aspect, I never thought about it until recently, how important role-playing or acting was for self-defense. Like, from a Muay Thai and sport combat setting, we train, then we put gloves on, and then the context is you and I square off, and then we hit each other. But without the simulated my buddy coming up to me and yelling me in saying profanity, and me practicing my passive yet defensive position, and then using verbal jujitsu to get out of the situation, and then knowing when is the point where they cross the line, and practicing that. If you're not practicing that, then you're not even actually practicing self-defense.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to be a good actor to be a good self-defense person.
Yeah.
Scenario-based training is essential to real-world self-defense situations. Obviously, the sparring element is too, but because that's the actual physical part of that conflict. But role-playing, scenario-based training allows you to practice when to start doing what. And maybe it's just de-escalation, maybe it's escalation, maybe it's escalation to de-escalation. So that gives you a greater opportunity to train that in a simulated real-world experience.
Thank you very much. This is an ongoing conversation, everybody. If you want to contact any one of them via email, Facebook, website, if people wanted to continue this conversation, where do they go?
So you can go to buckgrant.com, or you can look at Ajahn Buck on Facebook or Instagram.
Thank you.
All right, you can go to elevodynamics.com, ELEVO dynamics.com to do that.
And jaredwihongi.com, or same name on Facebook.
All right, and I hope people do reach out to you again to continue the conversation.
Love to be a part of it.
Me too.
Thanks.
Thank you.